All right. Hello to everybody that is joining us tonight for another episode with the Coach's Corner and an amazing guest for this evening. I will let the introductions happen here in a second, so I'm going to have a few moments of housekeeping. If you're watching, by all means, ask questions. Just post them in the little chat box, and I will pass them off. We'll try to get to them. If we cannot, it's not personal. Head on over to the Coach's Corner after this. Be sure to like them, follow them, and they're happy to help you there too because they're awesome. How is everybody tonight, gentlemen?
Excellent.
Yay.
Doing well.
Good. All right. So, Duke Sean, I am going to pass this off to you now. I've said my piece.
All right. Well, welcome everybody again to Coach's Corner. This is our ongoing series on A Conversation With. Tonight we are very honored to have somebody that had become one of my fighting mentors and trainers from early on. Duke Stephen of Beckenham, currently in the mid-realm, originally from the West Kingdom. I've been fighting with Steve and learning from him, and then eventually training others with him as well. And it's been an interesting progression to go from student to colleague. And I always love getting an opportunity to fight with him and talk to stick with him. And so obviously had some success throughout the known world and some of his own students as well, going on to greatness. So we're glad to have him. So Steve, if you don't mind, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Name is SEAY's Duke Stephen of Beckenham. No G. Been around for a few years. Like he said, West Mid-Realm, which is where I live now, and have traveled to a lot of the kingdoms. I don't know how many, plenty of them, and fought throughout the known world, which has helped in my abilities. So, what else do you need? What else?
I'll have a bunch of questions for you, so it's all good.
Excellent. Then that was a good intro.
And then, we're going to go ahead and start this up real quick. So you told us you're from the West. When did you start in the West? Not last year, right?
Pardon? Yeah, last year.
I'm asking the hard questions.
Let's see. I started in my freshman year of college, and then I went away for a summer, and I came back. So 79, 80, right around 79, 80.
Awesome.
And that was my thing.
So I guess the next question is, so what got you into the fighting part of the SCA?
Riding my bike to class, I saw these guys out over there hitting some trees with sticks and in carpet and these kettle helm things. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then they moved it over next to my dorm, their practices. And I'm like, oh, I gotta go see what this is.
Exactly.
And the knight of the area, Sir Robert Kinslayer, was like, you want to learn how to kill a man with a stick? Okay. I'm the younger of 3 boys. I get to hit a guy with a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. There are rules. I don't care. I get to hit a guy with a stick. And I just took to it like a fish to water. I got to do something at my speed, I guess, because I was the asthmatic kid. So I got to take something at my pace and my speed as a martial art, but it wasn't, I didn't have to pay to go every Tuesday and Thursday. And I got physicality out of it. And then the brotherhood, the SCA itself, which taught me a lot of things about family that I didn't know at the time, which was kind of cool. So that just, I was like, I'm staying here. I don't care what else there is.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that piece. Did you have any like martial arts or sports experience before this?
I was the kid that never got picked. If I was the center that hiked the ball, my brother would put his foot in my butt and shove me into the guy in front of him to get him out of the way. So that was me playing football. That was but I didn't do much. My dad taught me golf and tennis, which I appreciate because he let me do it at my pace. I had taken some martial arts. I did karate and taekwondo. And because it was at their pace and they'd make you do all these calisthenics, at the time I couldn't do that. So again, when I found the SCA, it's like, I have a natural ability. I just have to be able to do it around my lungs and what I'm allowed to do.
Well, I guess
taught me to get past that.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you bring that up because Rongvalder has some asthma. I believe Conrad
Yep.
from Kaid has some asthma problems, and it's interesting because you're right. A lot of times, other sports and martial arts, it's at their pace, right? So we don't give up. They're okay. You're going to plow through it, and that's just the way it works. And it doesn't always work for people that have limitations like that. And I guess that's one of the coolest things about the SCA is that we have the advantage of being able to do stuff like that. And I think it's a good one to bring up because I know my
Yeah.
Squire Side has some asthma problems. And sometimes she's like, okay, you have to give them time, get their breather going, make sure you know where their breather is, and just make sure that they can still perform. It's just at a different pace. And I think for a good teacher and trainer, that's something that you know you have to pay attention to.
Well, and I,
I'm,
I
I'm,
didn't really have the asthma, but I had like zero athletic talent at all. And so being able to come into this pretty young too, and being able to talk from the get go, it was to me it was an individual sport. It was something that I could be like early on. I mean, I was taught how to do the thing. It wasn't just here's your stuff and go figure it out, like a lot of others. So we've also got somebody else, one of our other coaches joining us tonight who has some experience with His Grace. That is Viscount Sir Sagan, who might have possibly done some training with Steve in the glory days.
It's interesting and wonderful to see you, Your Grace. Back in the day, which His Grace just referenced, well, I'm going to say it out loud. I consider this man my best friend. Yep. And the respect I have for him is whole.
it's mutual. You know it.
Let's get back to those younger men.
Yeah. Where the hell they go?
Yeah, well, you know what? I wish I had the knees that guy had. So anyway, back in the day, the time frame that he references is right around when we first met, and we became close friends. And he honored me with allowing me to train him. So we were in the Kingdom of the West.
That way.
Yeah, we were in the Principality of the Mists, which is drop dead, population center of the kingdom. And we had lots of people at practice. And we enjoyed quite the time. And I'm interested in hearing Your Grace speak of when we're united.
80. I'd have to look. I have it written down somewhere because I never freaking remember. 82 or 83?
I'm
Somewhere.
I'm looking it up right now.
Are you? Okay.
I have it on the back of my list shield because they always ask.
Yeah.
It's like right there.
Right. And it was one of those times where I had already heard of you, obviously, having been knighted in 1981. And it was a chance that we happened to come together at BART practice. And we struck it off right away. And it was like
I was a snotty upstart.
Yeah.
You too? I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly.
I was like, oh yeah, I got it. And Sagan's like, come here.
Yeah, come here a second.
Oh. Because I think I'd beaten him in a list. And he's not a list guy. I didn't care about it. And he didn't care, but I was out there, and he's like, oh, come here. Oh, the beat down. Put me in my place. I'm like, I am unworthy, sensei.
I wouldn't call it a beat down. I was just going through my list of, well, have you seen this? Well, what about this? And after an hour and a half or so, I think I got to halfway through the list and it was like, no, you hadn't seen those before. So after that, though, we struck up an excellent trainer and trainee relationship. And there was nothing that we didn't talk about. I mean, we talked about the entirety of the SCA. Whatever came up, we took it on like brothers. It's like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? But fighting was paramount for the two of us.
So Steve, let me ask you. So we're talking about your overall fighting philosophy. You know, uh, we talked often on the Coach's Corner about the fact that fighting style is very personal, very subjective. Um, I like to say that there's no master style. There are only master practitioners. So what would you consider to be kind of your style and kind of some of the hallmarks of your fighting philosophy, some of the things you like to generally focus on?
I'll throw it back and say that a lot of that started with working with Sagan, and he would, like you just said, he would just talk to me about anything. And I would ask, well, what's that guy doing? Well, how did that work? And how does that work? And I was learning and absorbing. And he's like, well, you want to learn more? Go fight everywhere, wherever you can. Come back and we'll talk about it.
True.
And I did. And in that, I learned how to adapt and pay attention to a style and find out what worked against it. And if you will, going to a Chopsaki movie type mentality, Mantis defeats Tiger, defeats whatever. It was that kind of thing that stuck in my head, that there is a way to defeat that, but standing in that spot's not going to do it. What is effective against that? And when I learned those things, just new avenues opened up. What I tended to do was I would collect styles, and I still do it. If I see something that's like, ooh, what's that? And if I ended up in an awkward style, which I have in a stance, so like I'm posing, I'm lucky not to get hit. But if I end up if I end up here, how can I get there to where that person is open? And I will work through that stupid stuff in my head. And my style is what works against you. I'll fight one person and I'll do 90% defense if I haven't fought them. And I'll go, okay, what do I see? What do I got? And then I'll pick a style that I know annoys them to see what the response is. And it might be some goofy looking thing. It might be very nonchalant. It depends on the person. But I have the usual of sword foot forward in almost a boxer stance to start with. Because from there, I can go anywhere. And if you all of a sudden jump me, you might freeze me. It happens. But usually I'm going to have a response that allows me to reset and reevaluate what just happened. It's kind of my long version.
Yeah, Sean.
Oh, I think that was good.
Yeah, Sean.
Lots of
So
styles.
this should sound familiar to you, Sean, in that Steve was the first trainee I had where it became obvious that was the way to go. Ask me, now watch this, now watch that, now watch this, right? And it was a typical trainer thing, even though he was watching somebody else fight. Why did that work? Why didn't that work? What are they doing? And I would be instructing, watch the feet, right? Watch the shoulders, watch the hips, right?
I think that's why I got into marshalling too.
Right. But
Because I'm watching.
his grace picked it up right away and became an excellent watcher. And he could turn it around and he'd come back to me and goes, I want to try this. So we would work it.
Break it down. Yeah.
Yeah, because in watching you over the years, one of the things I would say that is kind of style specific that is outside of like what you just talked about, because I like hearing what you're talking about, general philosophy. It sounds like kind of a chameleon aspect, where it's like I'm gonna, you're gonna try to be whatever the other fighter needs you to be, but kind of reverse. Whatever they want you to be, you're going to be the opposite of that, right? One of the things that I always say about watching you fight. First off, you have always been, for me, one of the prettiest people to watch. I love watching you fight. But at the same time, a lot of what you do is what I refer to in the Bruce Lee context of no form from form. It is the essence of the no form. And I tell people often that watching Steve fight is like it's like watching Brett Favre throw a football. If you want your kid to be a quarterback, don't let him watch Brett Favre, right? Because then they think that all touchdowns get thrown underhanded and that sort of stuff. And I don't know if I ever got a chance to tell you the story of when Galen, your former squire, came out to Glen Aubin for a class that I did out there. He came down with Felix, and I didn't know he was squire to you, and I saw him trying to do the Steve stuff.
Do me, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, you need to stop. You're not Steve. And it's just one of those things that people don't understand, that your comprehension of stick mechanics in particular, your stance, your like that thing you were talking about. How can I be here and get to there, right? Your comprehension of that is so good that you can violate the basic principles of the sport, and it's not because you're not just screwing around. It is because you do understand those concepts so well that you can then violate those concepts. And it's something I tell people all the time when I'm talking about what you do, that is really, really unique.
I don't look at it as unique necessarily, but I guess it's how I look at it. My attitude is I can show you what I do, but teaching you, I guess, comes down to the mechanic of it. And the mental mechanic of it. That's actually a good way to look at it for me to try to explain it, because someone's like, oh, I want to do that. Do you understand what I'm doing? I guess is the first thing to ask. But usually what I'll do is I'll show you. And if you can't do it, don't do it. I do stuff that's not usually possible, and I'll string the damn things together as well and catch you looking and take you just because you were paying no attention. But along to what you said about the Bruce Lee, the Tao Jeet Kune Do, I make sure I give that book to each squire.
Right. Yep.
Because it's form, no form. I can end up in a position and understand how my balance and my core and my feet and my hands and my shoulders are all positioned for me to make a strike. Half the time it's like, you should have made that strike. Well, I'm too busy trying to figure out what I'm doing. And then I'll have these conversations in my head and get hit for it. But it's because I'm trying to break down a mechanic and I'm doing it at the wrong speed. Most of us all here will know, and this came from Sagan also, in an exceptionally good fight, when you're at top form, you can slow the fight down.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, everything around you goes into slow motion except you. And I've seen Ron involved. I've seen it, and I've been there. The hardest thing to do, though, is to hold it. It's like water.
You can't hold it.
You can't. You've told me that. But I've been there, and I try to break things down now to a point where you look at it and you say, he's got this response available to what I'm going to show him or her.
Right.
I'm going to track it. And if it follows track A, it's going to be this. If it follows track B, it's going to be this. And in that, you take the ability to go chick, 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 and slow that fight down. So I figured out the practice for it. And then pandemic.
Yeah.
So I ended up chasing the cats.
and I think some of what you're talking about there is kind of that transcendent moment where you're almost kind of removed from the fight. And it's one of those things, it is very difficult to cultivate. And sometimes you don't make it happen. You just kind of recognize that is what had happened. Just like, oh, I had that moment. It's like that moment, that no mind moment that everybody looks for. And, and sometimes you just kind of look back and you go, oh, that just happened. That was that thing that everybody wants. And like, how do I get back to that? And it's hard. It's hard to
direct that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it is
and
absolutely hard. Yeah.
Really, I guess. Yeah, go ahead, Brannos.
I think some of that, though, I mean, there's definitely those moments where you just know exactly what's going to happen, and you're in that place where it's easy to see because you're in such a groove with your opponent and you understand him so well already, his speed, his timing, his range.
Mhm.
So everything slows down almost naturally, and your thought increases that much faster because you already know all the basics that you need to know to perform what you have to do. And so it definitely is one of those places where you can work on getting into, but you have to be super aware and connected on the field, right? And sometimes we can do that without, without really, we kind of find ourselves there. But later on, I think you put yourself there more often. You can control the pace of your opponent. I start ramping up, Beck moves his big toe, and then I slow down. you know so it's that idea that now you have a much more understanding of how to control your opponent as well. So you can start a pace, and then you can slow your opponent down. Allows you to think a little bit, and still keep your opponent in tension because you still understand what he can do. But it is definitely, when you first get in those places, it is just that beautiful place to be in, right?
Yeah.
And then it's super easy to lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Your opponent can snap you out in a second just by doing something different.
yeah.
No,
You're not supposed to do that.
Exactly, right?
Agreed. It is one of those things that happens. We've talked about this before in fights, even in training and practice. The moment comes. All of a sudden, you're reacting. You're not thinking. You have come to that place where the mental and the physical have coordinated their actions to a point where thinking is not required anymore. You have trained and practiced, and now you're performing.
10,000
And
hours.
in that moment is where you learn that it is possible. And it is in that moment when you try and grasp it and take control in some way that you will lose it. Over time, we learn that when it starts, you let it run. But as His Grace Brannos said, all it takes for some reason, ooh, look, a bird flew by. Ooh, look, somebody called my name, off the field somewhere or said something. It is disruptible, but while you're in it, it is magnificent.
Well, and at the same time, as you learn how to kind of harness that and kind of have more of those moments, the better you get, the harder it is to find people that are going to make you be that good.
Absolutely.
And and that's why, you see some of the best fighters out there in the world making that time. You got your whole line of people that want to fight you, and you're like, well, this guy just finally became available, so I'm going to make that time so that we can seek those moments, and so we can put ourselves in that position where we are required to find that transcendence, because as you get better, it is more difficult for people to. There are less opportunities where that transcendence is required. And so we have to seek it out more, and we have to make opportunities to make that happen so that we can hone that, so we can keep tracking that down.
That's that practice piece that you have to have. But going back to that practice idea here real quick, Steve, you talk about being able to move out of any position. I think that's a really, really critical thing that actually we don't spend enough time. Sean mentioned earlier, we have these overall rules, hey, don't put your foot behind the other foot, or don't swing around backwards, or don't lean, don't do these things, right? So we got some really, fundamental ideas of these are the things you shouldn't do. And I would agree 100%, especially for people first starting. But you definitely break all of those, right? I mean,
But I've been doing it a couple of days.
Well, and that's the piece though, obviously you've had some great people that you've trained. You have a number of squires I get to see all the time that are very good, and winning crowns. And I mean, what kinds of things do you set these people up with to get them to help them move through those places and learn how to get that same mindset as you?
That one is it's a good, excellent question, and it's very, very tough. And I've having had a number of squires, I don't know what I'm at, 16 or something, but having had a number of them, they're all different. And we know that. But picking someone that has a natural talent like Cameron and someone that didn't necessarily have a natural talent like Galen, that's two different training regimens in my mind. I have to come at it a different way. But to start with, if new fresh off the street, I'll just fight with them and spar and show them here's basic stances. If you see me do something, don't do it. I'm doing it to check what your response is. And I'm going to work at this so you can at least understand it's happening out there, because you're going to see some stuff that you're not going to block. You got to learn how to do that before you start doing long distance stuff. And you and I, or you as a trainer, learn your pacing as the trainer to tell them a path for them. I just saw a thing online that this reminded me of, and Brannos, you noted this. It was about this lady that had arthritis, and she hated washing the dishes before she put them in the dishwasher because it just hurt and took so much time. And her therapist is, hold on, I'm having cat interference. Her therapist is like, why don't you just wash them twice in the dishwasher or 3 times? Screw the rules. And to what Sean said, the rules are there. And Brannos, you're right. There's certain things you need to do, otherwise you're going to get hurt or you're going to hurt someone. And then we'll work to what your body type allows you and your natural ability. Cameron's a natural ability, like I said. And his moment was when we were fighting in the yard here. And I was pressing him and pressing him and pressing him and doing this and doing that and seeing his response. And he started following me, and we almost got to that transcendent spot. We didn't, but we were there. And at one point, we both went for the same real estate, and our knees locked. And he flashed, and he threw me to the ground. On the way to the ground, I went bink right in the face and killed him. I hate you. And it was like, we're there. Okay. So I understood where his fast ability was, where Galen's was just like this slow, steady. I'll get there. I'll work it. I'll understand it. And I will get to the level that you can train me to, and hopefully further. And some of them are here and some of them are here. It's just you have to find what their capabilities are. And if they ask to see something, show it to them. If they can't do it, go, no. That reverse blade thing I do, if you don't have the wrist or the elbow for it, you're going to blow something out. Don't do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've had Cedric, who's, Brannos, how tall is he? 6'4"?
Yeah, I was like 6'3", 6'4" at least, and a big boy. I mean, he's not a small guy.
He's a big guy, and he wanted to come out there and be a bear. He wanted to brawl with people. Well, okay, Baloo, you can do that. And he did for a while. I said, now let's work on some other things. So he started lurking. Yeah, well, that too. Learning distance and motion and lunges, and he became a fast, big guy. And that overworked for a while because he was too fast to what he was trying to do. So he'd overshoot stuff and overmove stuff. But ultimately, it was him learning what is allowed in his body. You think of Bark. You think of, we were just talking about him, West, Havek. His knees, he can't do big lunges. And I would move all over the place, and he'd lunge at me because it was the only thing he could do to stop me from moving around and going back and forth. And in the lunge, his knee would go, nope. And he'd, so he had to learn, don't let Beck do his thing and screw you up. Take your time. So even at our level, we still learn stuff because it's like, that did not work. And I'll have had that experience with all of you. Nope, that is on the no list. Don't ever do that again, because he just pegged me when he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But for training, I'm going to go back to that. It's a learning process for you to understand the student and what is their best path to take. And they'll show you as you go. You just see it.
Yes, absolutely, Your Grace. It harkens me back to our days, right? You would watch me fight Radnor. I'd come off the field and you'd go, I don't get it. I don't understand how that works. And I know I can't do it. And it was like, tell me what you saw. And you would go through the litany of everything that we did. And I'm like,
but I didn't understand it.
Okay, now that you've seen it all and you saw it. How much of it do you think you can do? And we worked our way through that to the point where you became a contender for the top fighter in the Kingdom of the West. But you're saying, you were reasonable. You knew that it was going to take time.
That is true. I mean, when they came out with the low profile thrusting tips, I had just put them on my swords when I was leaving West, and I came out the mid realm, and I was trying to learn them here as well. And it was hard going at first for me, just because it was so different. I had not used the other big nasty ones, but taking that line with the sword and making it not, core sampling somebody, but it was a learning process for me that was interesting, and again changed up my style in a way that I kind of enjoyed. It was different. It was fun. I mean, I'm all about the fun.
Yeah. So
Well, and you got to learn again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about adapting to the student, and I think that's something we've talked about on the show before. Is that as trainers, we have the information that people need, and I think we have an obligation to modify our teaching style to accommodate the student's learning style, because I think telling people that this is the one and only way to learn, and that it's my way and the highway, and you got to learn it this way, that it hasn't, it has only worked on a small percentage of time in the history of our sport. And I think you're striking on something very important there, that as trainers, we need to ask those questions, and we need to observe how somebody learns. We've talked about the visual and auditory and kinesthetic learners on the show before, and we have that obligation to make that evaluation, and that's something that Sagan did for me, even in my my ignorance and my resistance. There was so much of the, well, this is who I am, and this is the way I want to do things, and all this, and Sagan would very politely, nod and smile and nod and smile, and then eventually, I'd figure it out, and like I'd come to some epiphany on my own, and he'd just nod and smile, and okay, well, now that we're here, moving right along.
And
that sounds real familiar.
Yeah. It takes the trainee to recognize, well, wait, okay, so I'm entrusting this person with my next steps in something I really value. So let's take a chance. Let's wait. Let's see what he says, because there's never been one way to train everybody. Yeah. The one thing that I can say about His Grace Stephen is the fact that he came up in a time of rarefied air, like I did in the West, where there was Radnor. He was at the top. The ones coming up were people like Jade. Jade had a lot of natural ability that His Grace Stephen did not have. So it was one of those things that in training them, okay, it was one of those deals where, okay, here's how I'm training you to do the same thing, but Jade can already do it to a point, because he hasn't got it down yet. He's got the form, but he hasn't got the function. He knows what to do. He doesn't know when to do it. Where His Grace Stephen was on the other side of that going, I see that, I like that. I just need to know when and how. And that is it, Your Grace Sean, that the trainees should drive what the trainer does next.
So here's a question, just because I looked up when you got knighted. So you said you started in 1980, right?
79, 80.
Okay, so you got 79. Knighted. You got knighted in 83. One missed in 85.
Yes.
One king in 87.
Yes.
So for a guy who's not a natural, you're doing pretty good. And there's, I got people glaring at me right now. You better tell them you were practicing every day.
Well, A couple of things. Sagan said, if you want to learn, go everywhere. Well, I had my local practice, and
Yep.
then I had the Sacramento practice, and then I think there was the Vacaville practice, and then there was the BART practice that we could go to occasionally, because I lived in UC Davis, and that's where I started, which is between the Bay Area and Sacramento. Then I moved to the Bay Area, and at that time, Radnor was out there, and I was watching Radnor fight, and at the time, the ideal was he's throwing, it has a wet sponge in his hand, and he's moving it, and everything is flowing and gliding until it hits you, and then there's the splash. I took to that. I understood that. I said, I want to fight like that guy, because it was beautiful. And I will say, I've seen Choppy, I've seen Tank, Turret, I've seen that one. And he had his own style of getting the sword where he wanted, when he wanted, as well as putting the person there. But I went and fought all of these up and comers, and there was a very large stylistic change that happened in the 80s, in my opinion.
Yes, there was.
Fighting. And I got to be on the riding wave of that.
You
And
did.
I took everything and absorbed it, because this is fabulous. And the thing that kicked it for me was some war, pickup war or whatever. And I was not knight at the time. I'll take Stephen. Never in my life had I been chosen first, if chosen at all. And I was just like, you're kidding me. And that was it. That was my epiphany day for this is where I'm staying. And I love this stuff so much. I'm learning from it. I'm not going to stop.
Yep. So, so let me ask you another question. Mid to late 90s, I was very fortunate to have found the concept of training at this level. First with Fabian, then I met Sagan sometime after that, met Jade just shortly after. It all happened within about a 2-year time span. And then I met you. And you were teaching me at Estrella. Oh, I don't know, 97 at the latest. And you were in my mind clearly at that point, a trainer of our sport, trainer, coach, kind of like what we do now. And from the time you started working with Sagan, and because this is a question I asked him some time ago, and his answer, of course, is I knew day one that I was a trainer. So, but for me, there's this moment where you go from teaching, as knights are expected to do, to becoming a trainer or a coach. Like, when I first met Duke of the West, met him in your living room at a New Year's Eve party when I went out to a West 12th night. And I met him there, and of course one of the things I remember about that was meeting him in your living room in total mundane clothes. I thought he was knight already. It was pretty impressive the way he carried himself. But we, I had thought for a long time that he had been squired to you because your fighting styles were so similar. But yeah, that's what he said. Graduate school. I'm like, why do you, I was like, what's the deal with Steve then? And he's like, graduate school. So at what point did you recognize that you were a trainer of that capacity?
Well, let's see. I'm just trying to think. Starting off with Squires, it was a friendship and a locality thing. And even then, it was like, there's a knight in there, and I have to fight them, and I have to be able to look at them in the eye and have a conversation with them and go, there's a knight in there, and I think I can help them out. I look at it differently now, I think. Same way, excuse me, but in more depth. Can I help them in all the things? And it's one of the reasons I started taking man-at-arms before I squired someone, because this is the hangout period. Now we get to see if we like each other. You might find that I kick my dog. I don't have a dog right now, so I don't. But it's just one of those things that always stuck in my mind. It's horrible to get fired as a squire as opposed to let go as a man at arms. So I started doing that, and in that time, I found that I can get past um, the basics of are we cool to hang out, and now can I work on, as I'm still doing during man at arms period, if you will, can we work on the mechanics, and can I see if I, as a trainer, can work with you? And I'll get it sometimes that I will just go off on some transcendent thought process, and their eyes start spinning, and someone, it's usually Alina, will come over and go, he means this. Oh, okay. But I've gotten to a point where I'm speaking that way, and I've become more of a trainer, and I start getting lost in those thoughts now sometimes. But for when I shifted over to a heavy trainer, I'd have to actually think about it for a while, because I think it was just a slow process. I love showing people things and what I can do. I don't mind. I have no secret shots. I don't care. You probably can't throw it. I'll show it to you, like that weird back tail thing. That was one of those shots that ended up just happening because I got stuck in a position by how I moved and went, do something with it. Wha-bam! Oh, okay. There's pictures of me doing a jump shot against Brian de Bellatrix in Estrella, where I'm off the ground creating power and hitting him. And Ron Walter got onto me about getting photographed doing it. Stop that. And Brian was like, can you teach that to me? I'm like, no. I don't think you can move like that. And it's not something I've figured out yet what I did. Now I know, and it's from what we were talking about, watching and observing and absorbing. Now I can look at something and say, oh, this is what's happening there. And I've gotten better at taking account of, is it off my foot, my ankle, my knee, my hip, my core, my pec, my shoulder, how I'm dodging, what is creating what I'm doing, and breaking it down that far now, I've gotten better at doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Your Grace, Stephen, do you by chance remember back to BART practice?
Oh, I love BART practice.
Do you remember when I sent you off on missions to train people?
Vaguely?
Vaguely.
Vaguely.
Sean, the answer you are after is that the beginnings started approximately 9 months to a year after His Grace accepted me as a trainer. I accepted him as a trainee and agreed that when the day came, I would let him know. At that time, His Grace took on the role of trainer. Now, again, as trainers, we are perpetual students. His Grace Stephen may not look back at those early beginnings as him being a trainer, but they were. And I must confess, in the beginning, there was a couple of bumps, but he learned quickly and became a trainer almost immediately after that time.
Now, I do remember that because I think that came out of me asking, how has that happened? And you explaining it and us learning it. And then someone asking me the same question.
Absolutely. Spot on, Your Grace. It was one of those things. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I know how to do that now. Okay, now go assist that person in what you've just seen them do and educate them.
It's kind of funny because I actually just posted up something today. I shared another picture with a saying on it, and the saying was essentially, everybody has something to teach you. Sometimes they don't know what they're teaching you, and you have to figure it out. But everybody has something, right? And I think that really starts early in a fighter's career, and a good trainer will start showing that person and guiding that person to help others, because it helps them understand what they're doing even more. And when you try to show somebody something, it's just like, oh man, all of a sudden you look at your own technique, you're like, oh, I'm doing it terribly, and then you reinforce better technique on yourself. So, a good trainer will push their students into those scenarios so that they're working on themselves at the same time they're working on others.
Yeah. I know for me, it was a while, mean, KWRS was a big turning point for me, for sure. The Known World Rattan Symposium in Kansas City. That was a big one for me. But for me, it was kind of one of those things where when I realized that I was a trainer, I looked back on it and said, "Oh, yeah, I guess I've been doing this for a while now." You know, and a lot of that comes in just, you know, people come to you for help, and the help you give them is beneficial and helpful, and then that person's like, I don't know, I got this thing, Sean, fix this thing, so go have them fix your thing, and the next thing you know, that's that it kind of works. But I mean, I've mentioned several times that this is the best job in the world. Being a trainer and helping people out, and more so than just nightly sort of teaching. It's the best job in the world. So
Yeah, I have actually a question I want to throw out there. I've got a coach, a knight that has students, and I'm going to back up a bit. How I ended up with Hansa is Robert. So Robert Woodsend was
Right.
his knight, and he said, "I've taken him as far as I can go, but you have this whole thing that he can do, I think." And he offered him over to me to help him in graduate school. And I went, "Oh, absolutely." And I'm going to give kudos to Alina. She was military, as was Hansa, and Hansa had a little bit of a thing on his shoulder there, and she walked over and went, "Bink." So she helped him in some of his courtly graces. He and I fought like a pair of old dogs. I loved fighting that guy. But the coach I'm talking about now, the knight, has said, "I don't know what else to train him. I've taught him all I know." And I beg to differ, but how have you come across this with students that now teach that have said that to you?
I mean, I guess the piece there is, we go into, I've taught him all, but, he doesn't know the other people that could help him, right? Just like you just said, somebody's like, well, I taught Hansi all this stuff, but I think you could, be his next guy that puts him into this whole nether piece of things, right? So, even though he never said, that in a way he's saying, okay, I want to move him on, and he did. He helped him, right? So you don't really teach him everything he knows, because you still know, hey, there's still here's a guy with technique I think works. Here's another guy with some techniques. Here's a guy you need to go fight, so that you can get that experience of learning how to block and watch these types of things. I think some people feel like one of the biggest problems I see with most trainers and coaches is they don't know how to express what they know. So they don't have the
Yes.
vocabulary for it. And that's one thing that we're really trying to do here with this kind of thing is create that vocabulary for them and give them those spaces. And, there are probably great, fighters out there. Look at Rongvalder. I trained Rongvalder for a long time, and you could see his how fast he grew and how good he is. And am I teaching him? Sometimes I'm not teaching him stuff I know. It's stuff I'm learning. I'm like, I want to do that. Okay. I go show down Rongvalder. He's like, oh, I want to do that too. Okay. So then we learn it together. Right. Sometimes I'll do it for a while, and then I'll say, okay, and I'll start working it on Rongvalder, and he'd be like, okay, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing this. I figured it out. It's working. He's like, okay, let's go. Right. So, I think first thing I would look at that person and say, there's still more in you. Right. And even if, look at the night you're talking about and say, there's still more in you. I don't care if you have to go watch some boxing, go watch some other fighters, take a look and see how you think he would do. And if there's a weakness, say, you need to go over there, talk to that guy and get some pickup with him. Right. Because you're still training the person. You still know more. Right. That's what a coach is, right? There's that coach, that internal piece. I'm not going to train you a technique like a teacher, or sometimes even a trainer, right? I know what you need. I know that when you come back to the corner, I'm gonna be, that was great, even though maybe it wasn't perfect. You didn't have the greatest round, right? But but I know that you need to know so that I can get your your bubble filled again, so you can go out there and say, okay, that was great. Now look at this. Watch his leg, you know, and then pull him back into that fight, because he probably, after maybe not having a great round, deflated and is starting to, you know, throw that fight away. That's what a coach does, right? So that same night can be that, because he knows that person. If he knows him well enough to say, I have no more to give him, he hasn't even looked at the part that he's really able to give him.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of that too is that there is a limit to how much you can learn from one person. And you know, I mean, as a knight, you know, I was trained by Brian Tarragon, you know, one of the best fighters in the history of our sport. And the core of who I am as a fighter, even to this day, is absolutely Brian. If you talk to people that watch Brian fight in the 80s, when they watch me fight, they'll, you know, you can see Brian in me. You know, but when I got out of the military and went to Australia, and I ran into Fabian in what was that? It had to be 95. It was the second reign as King of the West. And I'm just trying to make my way in the world. And I'm like, hey, Your Majesty, can I have some fights? And I didn't know what a trainer was. You know, I mean, I was taught by my knight, and you know, but I didn't know. I mean, training and coaching and that whole concept was like totally foreign to me. I had no idea what any of that was. And Fabian ended up kind of becoming one of the first trainers I had after Brian. And you know, there's only so much you can learn from any one person. And you know what I needed to get from Fabian. You know, there are portions of his fight that he was not able to give to some of his other squires. I mean, I've been fighting Duke Connor of Ison, who was squired to Fabian since he was, you know, Princess Anagua. He and I have been working together for a long time, and I work with like a lot of that lineage. And you know, and there's no like you have to get it from several different sources, because and you know, we talk about that all the time here. We don't have all the answers. We can't possibly have all the answers. You know, all the answers are out there, but you have to go to several different sources to really to get all of the answers, because you can't get that from one person.
Yeah.
It also comes along the lines of, go ahead, Sagan.
Wow, you guys have really struck a chord in me. I'm a little emotional because this one is very, very at the core of so many. You are my brothers. We belong to a huge brotherhood. In that brotherhood, there's a trust. When you come to me and ask me or state to me something, I take it to heart and I formulate an answer. Your Grace, Stephen, you will remember that this very question that you have addressed came up with both Jade and Fabian for me. I, as His Grace Brannos and Sean have said, asked the question, what is it I can assist you with? Not to take it away from my brother, but to say, how can I assist you? I then replied with my answer, in that, yes, I will assist you in their training. It's incumbent upon us as knights and as brothers that we have so many responsibilities that at the core of what we do, there are many aspects, and one of them absolutely is trainer, coach, friend, and student. And as each new student offers us the opportunity to learn and to therefore assist future students, it is one of those things that is just so basic to what we do as coaches and trainers, that when somebody asks, we will respond. The response should be, in my humble opinion, should be kind. I remember Robert, Your Grace, Stephen. He was an honorable man and definitely a sturdy fighter. The two knights I assisted also were honorable men and sturdy fighters. I took it upon myself to say, yes, because of course I would. You're my brothers. Just like when you come to me now and ask me a question, of course I'll answer. We'll work it out together if we need to. And it may offer me the opportunity once again to be that perpetual student and to learn something that I can pass along even further. Stephen, I do have a question about this though. In what framework was this done? How long had it been, if you asked, had this knight felt that he could not or was not up to being the trainer for this individual?
It was in the year prior to the pandemic. It was in that period. So it was just this last year. He was frustrated in himself that he couldn't teach his squire any further. And he wanted me to work with him. He wanted me to work with the squire, which I'm fine with. Like I said, I'll teach anybody anything. I don't care.
True.
I love
True.
doing that. Or training it. I take it from a level, and we've all discussed this. There's teaching, training, and coaching, and however that fits in there. But I look at myself more of a trainer because I want to train you to do it your way. There's very few, even if you're my size, you don't understand your mechanic the way I understand my mechanic. So you're not going to do it the same way. It's not going to happen. And he was at the point where he was frustrated because he could not express or help this student anymore. And the way it presented to me was, I don't know how to do this. I'm right here. I'm right here. He's driving me nuts. I can't teach anymore. He's getting frustrated. I'm getting frustrated. And this whole thing, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I started working with the individual, and it's like, oh, I see plenty of things to play with here. And I think Brannos mentioned something. Everybody's mentioned something on this.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to, like Sean said, you go to many different places. I might tell you the exact same thing. And Galen had this. Oh, I was trying to teach him this thing. He couldn't get it. He went to Ron Valder. Ron Valder's like, oh, do the thing. And he comes back and goes, why didn't you say that? And I'm like, oh my God.
Exactly.
We say the same things, but we use different words.
Right.
And sometimes that other individual will go, oh, light bulb.
Exactly.
And I think there was a question about the light bulb.
Yeah, actually there is a question about light bulbs. So this seems like a good time to throw that out there.
That's
So so the question that comes in from Facebook Landia is, as a trainer, what is your favorite light bulb moment with a student? A moment things suddenly clicked and they did through a shot you've been teaching. So we're gonna let our guest of honor field this one first.
There are so many because they happen with most students. I told you one, which was when Cameron did he became part of the moment, part of the action, but I was ahead of him. But from that point on, bam, he became a world. He became a thing. One of them was Hansa. I was trying to get him to understand, sometimes you have to stand in the fight and just absorb everything. Not count, but just understand what is going on. So we went to what I called my boarding sword and my boarding shield. Took a round shield of 22 inches, put it on the ground. You have to have 1 foot in that shield at all times. I don't care how, and a manhole cover is perfect, by the way. I use that here locally. And we're going to stand there, and you have to stand in range with a small shield, which was my boarding shield, which was 18 by a small heater, 14 by 18, I think. But anyway, and we just fought, and it was almost like Russian saber dueling. And people were like, oh my God, are they mad at each other? What's going on? Oh my gosh. And you could just see Hans's eyes go, this is what it is. And I'm like, uh-oh. And those moments just it's just like hearts.
Yes.
I love those moments.
Your Grace, Stephen, if you would please
Maybe.
relate the story of the wavy rising.
I hate that shot. Sagan had this thing, and I'd get up and he'd go, huh? And I'd go, what? Bam! And it got to the point all he's doing is going flick, click, and he'd do some movement or something. He'd go, your shoe's untied.
Yeah. But
Just some motion, and I would always end up
how
like this.
bad did it get before your light bulb moment?
Two things. I would do the and he'd do it, and I'd be like this, and he'd go, you're dead. Like, oh my God, he didn't even swing at me. You're irritating the hell out of me, man. So there was a point in time, and I think it was at Estrella when we fought the last time. He comes out and he goes, and I went, ha, and I swing, I missed, but he didn't hit me. And he's like, it's about time. Oh my God.
Yes.
But I had the light bulb on. I see it.
Yes. Yes. The point being,
Oh,
sometimes it takes forever,
ever.
but you don't give up. You don't give up on yourself, and you don't give up on the trainee. And
Because one day,
and again, we're all brothers. Steve was a knight when I started working with him. Okay. It was my duty, my responsibility to get it done. Now then, His Grace left out one thing, because after the "you're dead" didn't work, I laughed at him.
yeah, well,
And that he I don't know that he remembers that, for some reason, triggered the light bulb moment, because after that, it didn't work as well anymore.
yeah, well, older brothers, they laugh at you when they roll you in a carpet and beat you.
Brothers, right? And it's one of those things, as your other graces have said, as the trainer, we have to find the way to get through to that one student. And as both Sean, as all of you have said, you say it one way, I say it another. Potato, whatever it takes, and all of a sudden it works, and they come back to you going, why didn't you say potato?
Yeah. So before we get to Brannos and ask him the same question about that light bulb moment, I'll give you mine. And I think, I mean, at this point, it happens a lot. It happens a lot, and it is, man, it's great. It is what we live for. It's what, this is why we do the thing, is to watch people have those moments. But I think probably one of the best ones that I had was let's see, would have been September-ish, 2005, right before we were going to the first KWRS. And my squire at the time, now Duke Michael O'Brien, Michael came to us with a fully complete martial arts background. In fact, we're going to be having him on for the conversation in January. But he came to us with a full martial arts background. He let me teach him SCA combat. He had been our Queen's champion, which for us is an unbelted list for a while. And then, I go to fight Michael at Harvest War, as I often do. And there was a point at which, I gave him the SCA combat training. I taught him to be an SCA fighter. And then he started taking the martial arts experience. And he said, I think this piece will fit nicely right here, and this piece will fit nicely there. And I can put this here and this there and this here. And when he started assimilating all those things, started putting those all together, that's when he became a beast. Yeah. That's when he just became an absolute monster. And I knew it, like, because not because of what happened to him, but because of what happened to me. I knew it as soon as it happened to me. I'm like, yeah, he's there and he's figured it out. And it's ironic because I was with Brannos at KWRS the weekend that Michael won his first crown, and he just pretty much murdered everybody. And we had a bit of a conversation about what it's like to have the first of your squires to have one crown. And that was probably, it's hard to say that it's really a light bulb moment because, he was such a great student to begin with. But, watching him put everything together, man, that's when everything came together. And I'm like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry or jump for joy or what, because this is going to hurt and I'm going to love it. And, it was just really magic to watch.
And in
So,
short time frame.
what's that?
In such a short time frame.
Oh yeah, because when he finally figured that out, it was, everything that he was putting into play from his martial arts background was the right thing to put into place at the right time. And he just, it was, yeah, it was crazy. Because it was really like flipping a switch. It really was that light bulb moment. So, Brannos, you got a favorite light bulb moment story for us?
Well, actually, I think that's the reason why I got into training, period. And, for me, I enjoyed training more, sometimes probably for a long time, more than fighting. But I'm going to go way, 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 way back. And Penzic 23, I started going out to the field every day the first week of Penzic, and it was really nobody out there. There was days I'd bring a rug and a carpet and a book, and I would just sit and read from 12 until 4 o'clock. And people would ask what time you're going to be out, and I'd always like 12 to 4. They're like, okay, I'll be out there at 5, and I'm like, okay, I'll be there from 12 to 4. And so Penzic, that first week of fighting really grew it took a while, but it grew to every day, and the numbers grew and grew and grew. But the first year, Duke from Caid, Atlantia, all over George.
Yeah.
We're going to go to George because most
Yep.
people know George. Him and his buddy came out, and every day, sometimes there are lots of days it would just be us three, and we'd be out there from 12 to 4, and it was probably maybe 3-4 years in, and we were just doing the same thing, and there was a PA going on, and they came over. It's like, oh, we can't. All our guys are like dying out there. Can you guys come help us? And I'm looking. I'm like, I don't fit in a PA in this outfit, right? And they're like, I don't care, and so we went over there and helped them. And at the end of the PA, they were like, hey, how about you two guys fight? And we're like, okay. And I looked at him and I said, one shot. And at that point, had been really working on him to think about the fight and to break the fight down where it takes just one shot. And it was so beautiful. It was this nice, 5-10 minute fake push, all of that. And he just threw this beautiful snap at the edge of range and hit me. And I'm like, I'm in my moment. I win. Now you think you won? I got bad news. I won. So that one still stands out to me out of all of the others. I've been lucky a lot, but that one I was so happy for him.
Yeah, I tell you, along those lines, I have been I've had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it. I've been bested in the finals of our Kingdom's Crown tourney by 3 of my former squires. And I had heard long ago that one of the best compliments you can get from one of your students is to have them be in the finals of Crown. It's been pretty cool. Like I said, it's definitely a bittersweet moment, but as far as light bulb moments go, there's that thing where it's like, yeah, sure, I would have liked to have won that myself, but there's that thing that says maybe you're doing something right.
Yeah, I would reflect in that there are light bulb moments as a trainee, and there are light bulb moments as a trainer. His Grace Stephen was one of my earliest light bulb moments, in that he wouldn't give up, and neither would I. One of my light bulb moments as a student was training under His Grace Paul, and then another one under His Grace Radnor. Where His Grace Paul pointed out to me, there's stuff you don't know. That was an epiphanal moment for me to make a choice. I could either continue the way I was going, or I could become the good trainee. And that light bulb moment led me into not only being a good trainee, but a good trainer. With His Grace Radnor, and we're talking about two super dukes who fought dramatically differently.
Oh, yeah.
And His Grace Radnor taught me and got it through my head that all things are possible, and all things are possible in you. And after that, the floodgates opened. I took on both the role of a trainer and a trainee. And it was one of those things where, again, somebody saying the right thing in the right way at the right time is truly meaningful.
Looking at, we got about 15 more minutes, guys. I got a question. I'm bringing this question up mostly because we've had this talk before, Steve, so we'll go with it. We actually had this talk with your squire, who is now a Duke as well. Fighting, art or science? You remember this conversation with him?
Yeah.
Should I get the analytics out or?
Both. I myself look at it as it's a martial art. It's our recreation of a medieval fighting life or death situation. We've turned it into more of the Victorian field of gold, cloth of gold, batons, and we've turned it into more of a paw, even if we don't do it in a specific time period. We're doing a martial art is how I look at it. I try to make it more of a medieval martial art than a sport. There's the variant of what you're wearing, et cetera, but how you're looking and how you're feeling, as long as you're presenting medieval, I'm very much more into that. I applaud those that can do a heavy medieval insertion of it. But I'm just kind of like, I'm going to call it an art.
Oh, I'm good with you. So, on the training side of that, there's so much creation that happens.
There's a science to
it. Right. There's science to your technique. There is an art in understanding and creating it, and
yes.
And so we look at baseball, right? I mean, baseball went the same method, right? We look at baseball just 5 years ago, we had a wholesale change into it being a science. It went, went to analytics, right?
Yeah. You made the comment, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for the humbling statement that you made on the post for the Coach's Corner that I'm just a pretty fight. I'll just paraphrase it, and I appreciate that, and that's part of my art to it. I like to paint with a big brush.
Yep.
And sometimes I'll have to get out the fine brush and do that. And both you, Brannos, and Ron Balder have said, why are you wasting all that energy?
Because it's pretty.
Because I can.
Because it's pretty.
I don't know. It's pretty, shiny. That's my artisanal adjustment to it. And actually, having developed from that, I turn that into, if I end up in a weird position, I've done all these weird motions. Now I have the ability to turn it into something, creating flow and continuing shots as opposed to going tak, 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 tak. If you can get that one kill off, though, I'm 100% behind that. And I do the same thing. If I was like, oh, all I have to do is move left and hit this guy. All right.
You're great, Brannos. I would answer your question with, try to do this without physics.
Guys, I was going to say, I think it is, especially when we're, go back to that no form thing. I think it has to start off as science, but the purest form of execution is definitely art. But without the physics behind it, without the science behind it, one of the things about that no form is you don't go straight to no form. You have
go
to
straight to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. and being able to, I mean, you have to have the science of it to begin with. And you know, when I started doing pel work with Brian, that was the first time that what I refer to as the science of stick mechanics. That was the first time that that was introduced here. Because so this was, I mean, I started doing pel work with him 83 maybe. And before that, it was here's your stick and go get him, Tiger. And you know, and Brian was the first person in our area, and I know it was happening elsewhere, but it was the first time in our area that that he was applying anything vaguely resembled to actual physics to the sport, and I still to this day refer to it as the science of stick mechanics. And in the beginning, yeah, it has to be science, and as you get better, it definitely becomes art.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your Grace, Stephen, do you remember back in our early training days when you were caught mesmerized by combinations?
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, look at all the stuff going on. I still do that. If I'm fighting Sean or Brannos, like, wow, that's cool. Bam. Do it again.
I watched the whole thing.
Yes.
I stood there and watched the whole thing.
What you can do with your trainees, though, is when you catch them in it, okay, maybe 1 out of 3 needs an object lesson, right? And that you nail them, right? And you ask them, what were you doing? I was watching. Why were you watching?
Do it faster.
It was moving. It continually moved. It kept going up and down and over and across, and I saw it, but none of them hit me.
Well, it's like that trigger drill.
Yes. So now you can't argue with them because you didn't kill them outright. So they are watching as a good trainee, even though you're at practice, or worse yet, in a tournament. They're watching it go, okay, body movement, offside, onside, okay, retreat, thumb lead, okay, I got that. It's almost like Daffy Duck on the log, right? Lunge, thrust, parry.
Dodge, parry, thrust.
There you go, right? Sometimes it is so mesmerizing to be the trainee that as the trainer, we do have a choice to make.
And I don't think that ever stops. I mean, there are high-end fights that I've been in where I do exactly the same thing in the middle of a tournament. I'm like, this is neat, and boy, that's gonna hurt when it gets here. And there's nothing I can do about it.
And wham, it just arrived.
But see, I
see Steve do that to everybody.
It's a trigger drill that Sagan taught me way back when. Fight. And I use this to this day with my squires and my trainees. It's fight. 1, 2, you missed it. And the newest guy I'm working with, I got to admit, I loved his response. I thought it was a trick.
Oh. So we
bravo.
Caught him on the
no, I'm seeing you to take the opportunity to hit me in that count of 2. But anyway.
But you did see it.
Right. He saw it. It's like, nope. Beck's doing something stupid.
So since this is one of my questions that I kind of have on my list. So there's a drill you got, right? You know, leave something for a second and then take it away to see if they can catch that. Are there other specific drills that you swear by for teaching people?
Yes, there's a couple of them. One of them I'm going to throw this one way back. BART practice. Now that they've changed the size of them, but anyway, the lines on the ground for parking. It's like, okay, how many steps does it take you to get over to that other parking spot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, well, me, 1, 2, 3. Who's doing it in less distance with their legs? But again, if you're doing X number of steps, how are you using them? You might do them at twice as many steps as I do and get there faster. So it's how are you utilizing it and how are you stepping to get there? That's one of the ones I still do. The fire hydrant, the manhole cover, standing on top of that and just doing the stand in range and fight. one of the guys, Sir Brand, when I came out to the mid-realm, I was jumping all over the place and doing this. He goes, "Oh, I hate you kind of fighters." "Oh, what do you prefer?" "I want to stand here and fight." "Awesome." Stood
Let's
there
do
and fought
that.
him. And he was like, "This is awesome. This is the best thing ever." Wonderful guy. Had a great time doing that. But I will pull out things like that. One of them will be, you're going to throw combinations. It's going to be 3 shots. The last 2 are going to be crap. I know it already. But you're going to learn how to use your mechanics of your body, of your stance, and use those. And that's more of an intermediate drill than a beginner drill. I still use the Pell drill that Jade came up with, the 1 through 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Throw to 1, throw to 1, throw to 1, throw to 2, throw to 1 to the 3. And I modified it to put your sword somewhere on the target. 6, all right, hit 1 with a powerful shot. How are you going to get from there to there? I don't care if I don't care how you throw it, get there. And so that's one I use currently. And I've modified it now because people, we were talking about this earlier, are more color or number or word oriented. Put colors and have someone yell out blue, green, orange, and have them throw it the colors. So there's all these different oddball things I'll do depending on their level and their skill level. The hardest one is teaching someone how to use a shield. Get it between you and the other guy. Well, understanding the mechanic of what type of shield you're using, it's probably more difficult than teaching someone just to throw a snap or 3 basic shots, because what kind of shield is it and how are you using it? I've come to find out that the center grip heater is the best thing to start with, because you can just hold it in front of you and it doesn't float away like a heater tends to do. My personal preference, but I will have people use my gear. Here, put this on. And so I got the pill, I've got the spot, I've got the hydrant, or not the hydrant, I keep calling it hydrant, the manhole cover. I'm just trying to think of some of the other oddball ones. The targeting, which is give them the opportunity to hit you, but it's not free. You got to do something to get it. And it's a technique I use again for training is I will fight an individual 1 or 2 above what I feel their level is. If I fight them 1 above their level and they cram me, it's like, yeah, okay, here we go. And I'll pick mine back up. So now they have to excel at what they're doing at their level to hit me. I don't mind if I get a hit. I don't care. I want them to have been able to achieve it and get that bravo for having made it to that level that they had to push for. And then they can do it again and again and again. And that helps them learn. And I will tell them, I'm not fighting you like I'm in a crown. I'm fighting you to train you to move up. You have to have some success at this. Otherwise, you're just getting beat, and that's no fun. So that's kind of a mishmash of things, if that answers your question, Brannos.
No, that's exactly. Actually, I've been asking that because we'll probably ask you to tape your 1 to 6 drill with your sword on the pel. Because I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing the creation of the power from sword forward all the way around to another shot.
Right.
And in different stances, yeah.
Your Grace,
So,
if I may, back in the day, what his Grace Stephen is relating is hold your ground and obtain the ground, in that you have to be capable of doing both mentally and physically.
Yeah.
all right, so we're running up at 5-2. I want to give you kind of the last chance here. So, we talked about becoming a trainer. I think, what would you like to say, kind of last thing, what would you like to say to people that want to become a trainer or a coach? How do you, kind of push them into that, and how do you help them become that person?
I would say first do with someone that is amenable and easy for you to have discourse with. It just makes it easier. Try to get that language barrier out of the way to begin with, because that one, I'll say a flat snap or a rap. Some will say a flat snap and a thumb lead. And so get your words down right and make sure you understand that. But from a trainer, I would say if you're good at a thing, understand how you try to relay it to someone else. If it's just start by teaching. I do X. This is how I do this. This is how I do that. You can better identify from your point of view what you're doing. Watch someone try it and then identify how they go at it so you can give them some pointers of how to accept and discuss the differences in teaching and training. Do what I say, not what I do. That's kind of important. And when you can make that jump to giving someone all of the ability that they need to continue on without you teaching them a specific, this goes here, then you're a trainer in my book. I appreciate both, don't get me wrong. But a trainer is someone who has that ability to take a 6 foot tall person, or 6'4" foot tall person, a 5'3" person, and turn them into an able and capable fighter on the field. And you're trying to train them to utilize their skills, their skill knowledge, their skill development ability. And it's all of these things that you have to look at. It's not just, can I hit somebody? Yes, there's a will to engage that's very, very, very necessary in what we do. If you don't have the will to engage, it's going to be difficult until you get that. And that's the first thing I will look for. Do you have the willingness to engage with someone and whack them with a stick and get hit? My best buddy, when I was in college, when we started, got hit and he was done. Nope. Never saw him again. I did, but I mean, not on the field fighting. So understand your students, understand your ability, and then work from there to better both of your abilities.
Nope. That sounds good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, we're
Thank
at the
you.
top of the hour here, so thank you for coming out to do this session with us.
This was awesome.
Yeah, and it's been so nice to hear other people kind of have some input, and I really love hearing other people's drills and things they do. It gets me all excited. I'm like, oh, I gotta try that. So it's very cool, and I can't thank you enough. You've been like Sean. You are one of the most beautiful people to watch fighting, and I always love seeing it. And I know I enjoy our passes every time we get them. So I can't wait till this is done so we can get a few more.
Absolutely.
All right. So upcoming. So let's see. This coming Monday, we're actually going to be doing a special episode of the Coach's Corner, where we are going to be teaching people how to do video analysis. I have a step-by-step process that I've been teaching for years as far as how to break that down. We are going to have Sir Helga from the West Kingdom joining us. She is absolutely one of the best analysts in our sport. So she's going to be joining us for that. We're also going to be having as Grace Thor from the Cruel joining us for his first episode as one of our coaches. We've added him to our coaching staff. We're really looking forward to having him joining us. So that'll be Monday night regular time, so 7:30 Eastern. So really looking forward to that. We kind of had to do that on an off day because Helga is also the host of Between Two Peers, which is coming up in about an hour here. So we kind of had to accommodate her schedule a little bit, but I definitely wanted to have her on to do that. And then next Friday, Brannos, you want to tell everybody what we got planned for next Friday?
First, I got to remember.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, man, it's Thanksgiving already. You're killing me.
Yeah.
We were going to do an episode to, we were thinking about what we're thankful for, and we were going to kind of come up with things that we're thankful for. But Sean came up with an even better idea, and that is the thing that we're probably most thankful for is that we've had people that really helped us do this more than anyone else, and that's our spouses or our significant others. And I think for many people that is exactly the truth. So we're going to actually have them on the show, and they're going to talk a little bit about what it is to be on that side a little bit, and what it is to have to deal with us, so you can ask all the hard questions.
We're kind of hoping they have something nice to say.
I'm hoping too. That's why I have that mute button, right? I mean,
Oh, like you would use that.
Right, you get to use that one time.
Yeah,
Exactly
one
one
time.
time.
Yeah, and I'll get muted in my sleep. But yeah, actually, we're looking forward to it. Hopefully everybody has a great Thanksgiving as well, and come out and watch that Friday show. So we'll see how she goes, and I know they're excited to talk a little bit too.
Your Graces, if I may.
Please.
I was invited to be a coach. I truly enjoy it. Tonight you saw some old guy get involved with a man who he's known for a long time. Coach, trainer, friend, knight, peer. If there's any question as to the value that these presentations grant those who are willing to view us, it is that 30 years ago or more, His Grace Stephen and I embarked on a journey as a coach, a trainer, and a trainee, and he has had his own journey in all three of those, as well as the rest of us. It is, as His Grace Sean says, best job in the world. I would thank you for joining us week after week. I thank His Grace Stephen, my old friend, for joining us in that he is proof of what you can take this to be if you so choose. And we are here to assist you in that endeavor. Good night.
All yours, Vesper.
I don't know how to follow that. No.
That was very good.
Well, it has been a wonderful evening, and it has been a pleasure to have our lovely guest on.
We can probably follow that up with our thanks as always to Vesper for keeping us on track,
Absolutely.
for getting
Absolutely.
these things out there and
Yes.
making this all happen. Your efforts to get this going week after week are this is what makes it happen for us. So
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I am honored to be able to do so. So I hope everybody has a good week. We'll see everybody next week on Friday. Actually, we'll see people on Monday too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Monday is the
Monday,
next
yeah.
one. And so as the holidays are coming up, everybody stay safe, be supportive and happy. Holidays are hard for some people, but we're all a big happy family here. So don't be afraid to reach out. I'll see
Awesome.
all of you in the very near future. Thank you for tonight.
All right, see
Thank
soon.
you.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thanks, Steve.